Welcome to Fantasy Football Court. We are four regular guys talking all things fantasy football. Unlike some other shows, we only talk about fantasy football. We make our arguments, we present our cases, and you are the judge. We are all in the same fantasy football league. The people are real, the league is real, and the trash talking is real. Court is now in session. Welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Court. My name is Charles.
My name is Andrew.
My name's Nick.
And I'm Jeremy.
Today we're going to put the Detroit Lions on the stand. We're going to cross-examine them and look at all the fantasy positions that they have to offer, and hopefully we'll get some insight as to whether they can help your team or not. Let's get some initial thoughts of the Detroit Lions. Andy, what do you think initially of Detroit?
When it comes to fantasy football and Detroit Lions, it's either feast or famine.
Yeah.
I believe when it comes to their numbers and matchups, in the past it's been that way. I don't see it being any different this year. It's either going to be feast or famine.
I don't really know what to say. There are some Detroit Lion players that if they're available at the right spot, I would jump on, but I don't really see anybody on this team that I'm just craving to have.
Yeah, there's nobody that you're craving to have. They got some potential, but we'll see. They have an offense that's suited to do. Like last year, they threw a lot. They liked it, so there's some potential there.
You hear me?
They have a quarterback that you know what you're going to get if you get him. Outside of that, I think most of the other players are up-and-comers that are either bouncing back from injury or you're hoping have breakout years.
All right, let's dive right into it. Let's look at the quarterback position. And this guy's been there for quite a while, and he's been a high performer. He throws a lot of interceptions, but he also gets lots of points. I'll start with Nick on the quarterback position.
Well, Matt Stafford, he's a proven commodity. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's probably around the 10 quarterback, around there, is what you would take him. 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. I think he might take a step back this year because they lost their left tackle for the season at the beginning. I mean, it was like 3 or 4 weeks back. So they traded and brought in Greg Robinson, Cyrus Kwanjo, to try to see if they can shore up that left tackle spot. But, you know, them guys are not really – I mean, they were drafted pretty high. One of them was drafted top 3 pick. The other guy was a second-round pick out of the draft, but they've never lived up to their potential. If they can get something out of them, it might be better. But that's going to hurt him a little bit, not having that solid left tackle spot.
I'm a big numbers guy. I think trends do exist and they are real. Matt Stafford has been an every other year touchdown quarterback. He had 41 TDs, then 20, then 29, then 22, then 32. Yeah. Last year he had 24, so if the trends continue, he'll have close to 30 TDs or more this year. Every year, though, he's passed over 4,200 yards. Last year he did have a career low in interceptions and only throwing 10 interceptions. So, I think you have to look at him in that 8 to 12 range. I think he's a low-end starting quarterback in a 12-man team.
He gets drafted in our league. Yes. It's just a matter of where.
I think that he's got to be considered as a starter in our league.
That's what I'm saying. He gets drafted as a starter.
Probably take a hard look at him 9th, 10th round.
He'll be somebody's starting quarterback, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in not the 10th round, but I agree. I mean, but if he ends up on my team because I drafted a quarterback late because I didn't get who I wanted, I'm not real disappointed.
But you don't want him being your starting quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't want him being my starting one, but if there's a run on quarterback.
But if it ends up being that way, I'm not gonna. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I don't want him as my quarterback number 1 this year. I think that he's going to take a step back this year. Last year I thought he was going to have a good year. At one point I almost took him, and I was like, I already had my quarterback, so I didn't bother. But I think this year he's going to take a step back.
I don't know if he'll take a step back if he just does what he always has done.
He's an average quarterback.
He's an average quarterback. I mean, to me, he's a plug-in. He's a fill-in. When I buy things, just not even fantasy football, I like to buy things that are a real good deal for me. I mean, that it's just a really good deal. And when it comes to fantasy players, I don't mind having some if I can get them in a really good spot, get a really good deal for them. And he would have to be somebody that's just hanging around at the end of the draft that, I might pick up as a plug-in, but I don't want him to be my starter. Any other thoughts on the quarterback? If not, we'll move on to the running back.
No, we're good.
All right, let's go to the running back position. I'll start with Jeremy on this one. What do you think of the Detroit Lions running back committee?
Amir Abdullah is one of those players the last 3 years that
A lot of hype.
you hear
Yep.
this year's going to be the year.
Yep.
This, it's almost like, and I think I've used this analogy before, but we live in SEC country, and the last several years you've heard this year is going to be Tennessee's year. This year is
Yeah.
going to be Tennessee's year. This is the year they win it. It's the same way with Amir Abdullah, and every year, either injury or something else crazy, he's just struggled. And until he proves himself, I'm not ready to take a risk on him, because you're looking at 3 straight years he's found a way to mess things up. Behind him, you have Theo Riddick. I would possibly be more interested in drafting Riddick, because I think that Amir Abdullah is going to get hurt or something. I don't know if I've seen Amir in person, and he's a small frame dude. He may have some weight and some size to him, but it's just the way his body is. It's not really, he doesn't have the broad shoulders. He's a little bit smaller. So I just don't think he can hold up. Theo Riddick, if I'm going to draft a running back, I would probably take him over Amir Abdullah.
Thoughts on running back?
I agree. They brought in Matt Asaya from Minnesota. I looked to him to maybe get some more goal line carries, because they did lose Anquan Bolden. They're going to look for that red zone person. So I looked to him to get some carries here and there in the red zone. But if I'm drafting a running back, I'm probably looking more Theo Riddick than anybody.
What did you just say?
Matt Asaya.
The guy from Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know. That,
I'll say this before I pass it off to Andy. If there was a Hall of Fame for preseason, then Amir Abdullah would be in it. Because
Yeah.
every preseason, he gets us so excited about what's going to happen. The season starts, and he is nothing like he is
He
in
gets hurt.
preseason.
I'm just not real high on them, because of they're more of a committee team. There's several that are committee, and this is one of those that you just don't know what you're going to get out of them.
And
They are a pass heavy team,
that's what I was
Yeah.
saying.
and so when it comes to fantasy options, I'm not real excited about them.
The Lions have not had a running back since Barry Sanders left.
It's a long time.
It's been a while.
All right, any other thoughts on the running back before we go to wide receiver?
we're good.
All right, let's go on to the wide receiver. I'll start with Jeremy first on this one. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver core?
Golden Tate. Last year he started out really slow, ended really strong. Still makes me nervous. Even though I really think that Golden Tate is a true number 2 wide receiver being forced to play as a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's a number 1 wide receiver, which to me means that in fantasy football he's not going to be able to put number 1 wide receiver points up. So I think there's potential, but I would avoid him just because simply I don't think he's good enough to be a top wide receiver. Marvin Jones, same thing. I really just don't think the Lions have a what I would consider an elite level receiver on their team.
I agree. What do you thought?
Yeah, I think Golden Tate was a top 20, 25 receiver last year, but like he said, he's not a true number 1 receiver. But they did lose Anquan Bolden, and he was who they went to a lot in the red zone. So who's going to step up?
Somebody's going to get those
Yeah,
passes.
so I think it's going to be Eric Ebron. You might even see Marvin Jones finally. I know what I think it was like 3 last year. He had I had him on my team, and he had 38 fantasy points. I mean, he went off. And then after that, it was nothing the rest of the year. So we'll see if he starts getting some of them red zone targets, because it seemed like they transitioned and went away from Marvin Jones and more toward Anquan Bolden, which Marvin Jones did say banged up a lot of the year. So if he's healthy this year, he could be. I mean, you could get a bargain where you get him, and I think you could get a bargain with him.
You may can look at Kenny Galladay, the wide receiver they took in the draft from Northern Illinois, making a splash.
Well, you're just hoping, though.
Yeah, well, they took him hoping that he would begin to work into their wide receiver 1 slot in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, he's also 6'4".
Yeah, he's
So he might be
6'4", 213.
So he might be that red zone target.
Well, they haven't had a big one since,
Megatron.
yeah, I mean.
Yeah, he's 6'4", 218 pounds, and run a 4.50 40.
Yeah.
Good speed. Thoughts?
I really don't have a lot to add to it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have a lot to add to that either. I'm not looking forward to any of these receivers. Obviously, they fall low enough to me in the draft where I can get value. I take a shot on them, but there are none of these that I would draft high. All right, let's look at the next position. That being the tight end. I'll start with Nick on this. What are your thoughts on the tight end
Eric
position?
Ebron is their tight end, and he's a tight end one, I think, this year. I think he has
If he
potential.
stay healthy.
Yeah, if he can stay healthy, he is a tight end. He can one this year, and he can. I mean, with Anquan Bolden gone, they're looking for that red zone target. He could be it, and that could be loads of fantasy points for him. And he could. I mean, he had a really good year this year, but can he stay healthy?
Jeremy?
Same thing. I think Eric Ebron has great potential. He started off last year at having his best year. Caught 61 of 85 targets, 711 yards, and a TD, but he missed 3 games with knee and ankle injuries. The biggest concerning stat of that is the lack of TDs. But I think last year the Detroit Lions struggled scoring TDs in general.
They did.
So, I would have him as a late tight end one, maybe somebody I take as my second tight end if he's still available, just to see what happens.
Thoughts on the tight end?
Eric Ebron's a great tight end. I think he is. If he stays healthy, he's a big target, and he could be pretty decent this year.
He's not somebody I'm really looking to grab, but if he happens to be there and I need a tight end and I'm hurting, he may be somebody I'm forced to
He
take.
averaged 6.5 targets a game last year.
Yeah.
That's pretty decent. If he caught 5 balls a game, that's 10 points basically.
Matthew Stafford's on the run for his life. He looks for him.
Yeah,
All right.
that could be a lot this year.
Let's look at the next position because we do cover them all. The defense. What do you think about the Detroit Lions defense, Nick?
I think they'll be a little bit healthier in the secondary this year. They had some injuries in the secondary last year. They hurt the whole year, but I don't see enough improvement in that defense to really make it a difference. I think they're still a low-end defense.
Jeremy, thoughts on defense?
I just do not like their schedule. When you're constantly covering this division, you're constantly having to play Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans,
Green
Pittsburgh, Green Bay. That's just not fun to have to do.
Right.
So, I think that they do have a decent defense. They were 18th in rushing, 19th in passing.
Middle of the grade.
So middle of the pack, but I think it would come down to matchups with them.
Well, they did help a lot in the draft. They added Gerard Davis and Tease Tabor from Florida, and they added Jared Reeves Maven from Tennessee. So they added some pieces of the defense.
Trying to shore it up. Thoughts on defense?
I still think they're in the bottom of the pack. I mean,
I still
they've
think so.
added some of those players, but they're still not. They're not even halfway for me. They're not even in the halfway range.
I'm not too excited about him either. All right, let's look at the kicker. Any thoughts on the kicker?
Matt Prater's their kicker. He's he's been good in the past a few years, and it all depends on that offense. I mean, it depends. How many red zone opportunities is he going to get? If they get into the red zone
And don't score.
then he'll get a lot of opportunities. But it just depends on. He's not a top kicker as far as fantasy options because of that offense.
I wouldn't mind having him. He's in a dome. I think Detroit's going to struggle getting touchdowns. I think they're going to get bogged down in the red zone. So I wouldn't mind having him. But again, he's somebody I'd get last couple rounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having him in dome. Same thing, dome kicker.
He's a kicker.
Yeah.
I'm
All
going
right.
to take whoever.
Exactly. All right. If you have any questions or comments, hit us up.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @FF Court.
All right. That it?
Yep.
Court is adjourned.